all of the authority is gone. It's like it's just whoosh. It went the moment he announced his resignation. It actually went way before that. But what that means is that into that you get a lot of MPs worrying about their futures, a lot of ministers worrying about their futures. And at this point in time, Andy Burnham is at his most powerful. He's probably the most powerful right now that he'll ever be before he gets into number 10, because nobody knows what jobs they've got and nobody knows what his policy agenda is. So everyone is kind of looking over their shoulder for Andy and they're trying to appeal to him.
Now, every week at this time, we take you through what's in store for the week ahead. Tomorrow, Andy Burnham, Prime Minister in waiting, is due to give a landmark speech setting out his proposals for major economic devolution, which will include the creation of a number 10 in the north. On Tuesday, the government's going to publish that long-awaited defence investment plan ahead of a NATO summit in July. Also on Tuesday, further findings expected from Baroness Amos's rapid review into NHS maternity services, which looks to drive improvements and provide accountability for families who suffered over the past 15 years. On Friday, July the 3rd, America continues its celebrations of its 250th anniversary, the semi-quincentennial, with President Trump due to fly to South Dakota to watch a firework display over Mount Rushmore, the first to take place there in 6 years. And it's also thought that the government is going to introduce an immigration bill and a series of reforms put forward by the Home Secretary, which could curb indefinite leave to remain. Plenty of rows going on about all of that. So let's talk to Stephen Swinford, the Times political editor. Hello, Stephen.
Good afternoon, Carole.
Great to have you with us. It's going to be quite a big week. Let's start with tomorrow and Andy Burnham's big economic speech. Hugely important, even though all the papers, and including, of course, the Times and Sunday Times, have lots about the sorts of ideas he's looking at.
Yeah, he's talking about maximum devolution, and he will be spelling out exactly what that means. The first thing that's interesting is this number 10 of the North. So he wants a big tranche of number 10 to move, we think, to Manchester, and he's going to make an explicit commitment in this speech to spend a lot of his week or his time in Manchester. So that will inevitably take power with it. So that's number one. And number two, it is a kind of like wholesale devolution first approach. So the idea kind of think more, the assumption is that things are devolved, and then you just keep in the centre things like the NHS more broadly, security. So most spending then and most decisions politically are made at a local level, and that is Andy Burnham's vision for how you turn the country around. But you're also going to get an argument, and he is going to argue that the economic failure of the north of England, where it has not done as well for many, many years, is a cost, and that the south pays the price for that in terms of higher welfare bills, more expensive public services. So because of the underinvestment in the north and the economic failure of the north, everyone in the south is paying more in tax because of that. That's his kind of logic that he's going to set out there.
Just on that, and there's lots of other bits and pieces of economic policy that are being floated, but isn't he going to have to address the concerns that have already been raised by some Labour MPs in other parts of the country who are a bit worried about this big focus on the north? I mean, if you're in a poor constituency in Cornwall or Kent or even parts of London, the message to voters may not be what they want to hear.
That entirely, and that is what this argument is about. So the South is paying the price for the failure of the North and other parts of the country that are poor. And I'm sure he will extend it out to other regions, but that is the logic of what he's doing here, that he's saying it's a cost that is borne by everyone else because of the failure to invest. It's a big country argument. And look, it's a broad argument at this stage. In practice, that is going to be quite a hard argument to win over his MPs on. We have reported on lots of MPs in places like the, deprived coastal areas in the east of England, some in the southwest and elsewhere, who are saying, well, look, it's not all the north. I mean, obviously, the north has issues, but there are lots of areas of deprivation around the UK. And Andy, you need to build a coalition here. You have MPs from across the country, and you need to bring all of us with you, is the point that they've been making to him publicly and privately, that he basically needs a whole country approach. And they are worried that this whole King of the North thing, this whole focus on Manchester again as the kind of hub of his number 10 operation could actually, lead to imbalances matters in its own right.
Now, Tuesday, we're going to get this long-awaited and hugely controversial defence investment plan, which has already led to the resignations of John Healey and Al Carnes. We're told there's a bit more money, but I mean, that announcement is still going to prompt quite a row, isn't it?
It is. So the amount of money has gone up from 13.5 billion to 15 billion. And they're going to announce lots of things like shifting to drones away from traditional types of ships. All of that kind of stuff is in there and in the package. The problem is that defence chiefs are saying it doesn't address the gap. We've got a 28 billion pound shortfall here. So you're selling this as an extra money, new money. We're going to have to cut lots of things that we're doing to fund this. And that is one of the challenges here, that the defence establishment is very concerned about it. There is, however, one thing that is playing in Keir Starmer's favour for once on this, and that is the fact that Andy Burnham, or people around Andy Burnham, they don't necessarily mind Keir Starmer making this announcement. There's an element of real politics to it that effectively someone said to me, look, it's obviously going to create a backlash, but that's Starmer's backlash. And then Andy can come back in and look at it all again in a few weeks' time. So there is an element to which there is politics at play here. What you haven't got is Andy Burnham standing up and saying, this is terrible. We're going to spend lots more on defence, as much as people might like him to. They are powerless to stop Starmer announcing this. He is the Prime Minister. He can announce it. He's legally entitled to do so. But also, there's an element to which it actually is not unhelpful for Keir Starmer to announce this.
Now, the immigration row could come back to the surface this week. We've got an immigration bill likely to be introduced. And, I mean, we saw this extraordinary skirmish when Mike Tapp, the immigration minister, suggested changes to Shabana Mahmood's proposals on indefinite leave to remain. She said he should be sacked. And Number 10 said it wasn't up to her to say who should be sacked. I mean, it just points to the complete disarray as people all look to the next administration, Steve.
It does, because all of the authority is gone. It's like it's just whoosh. It went the moment he announced his resignation. It actually went way before that. But what that means is that into that, you get a lot of MPs worrying about their futures, a lot of ministers worrying about their futures. And at this point in time, Andy Burnham is at his most powerful. He's probably the most powerful right now that he'll ever be before he gets into Number 10, because nobody knows what jobs they've got and nobody knows what his policy agenda is. So everyone is kind of looking over their shoulder for Andy, and they're trying to appeal to him. And there's an argument that this immigration minister, Mike Tapp, he used an unauthorised opinion piece in the Times to set out his ideas for migration and the kind of migration settlement. And he suggested an idea that you would exempt care workers from some of these more stringent requirements for settling in the UK. So that was what he said was his idea, and that has provoked this almighty row. Shabana Mahmood tried to sack him. Keir Starmer won't, but that stems from two things. It stems from Mike Tapp having nothing to lose and wanting to put this idea out there, but also he may have half an eye on what comes next. And that is the case with everyone. So I think, we've got a fair few weeks of this. You should expect lots of cabinet ministers and ministers to be giving wide-ranging interventions on subjects that may be beyond their purview, or indeed that you'll see them accelerate things that they were already doing in the government, so that they could prove to Burnham that they're the people with the ideas and the policies to do stuff. So it all looks rather unedifying, but that is the fact of the matter.
And just finally, Stephen, I mean, on the Shabana Mahmood immigration proposals, there is a huge amount of disquiet, isn't there, within the Labour Party over those plans, thinking that they could prove incredibly divisive. I mean, this skirmish that we've seen this week could just be part of a wider row.
It is part of a wider row, and it's a problem for Andy Burnham. It's not going to be a problem for Keir Starmer anymore, obviously. So you've had more than 100 Labour MPs raise concerns about this hardline approach to legal migration and making it harder for people to settle in the UK. It's going to apply retrospectively. That has caused a huge amount of consternation in Labour ranks. And crucially, again, it's one of these areas where we're not quite clear where Andy Burnham stands on this. So he has praised Shabana Mahmood and broadly accepts her migration forms, but we think that this is one one area where he may want some changes to kind of soften it. And we suspect that Shabana Mahmood may try to get ahead of that this week, that one of the reasons she was so frustrated with Mike Tapp for putting out that op-ed with us is actually that is a policy that they're looking at and thinking about and that she could and was planning to announce herself. We're not sure on that. We'll see the shape of it later this week. But either way, that is one of the challenges here.
Stephen Swinford, political editor of The Times. Really good to have you with us. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
You can rely on Steve Swinford and his brilliant team at The Times to bring you all the twists and turns in this crucial political week ahead.